Hey everyone, and welcome to SideQuest, the every other week Authors and Dragons non-adventure in which we discuss whatever the fuck we feel like discussing. My name is Rick Gualtieri. I'm here with Steve Wetherell and Robert Bevan, the latter of whom is not me. And
Bullshit.
Well, we hope to get a lot of photos proving this in a couple weeks at actually, God, 2 weeks at A&D DCon. Although by the
It's
time
staged.
Photoshop.
Nice cardboard cutout.
It's like, I've already signed up for Area 51, man. I know about the man and his tricks. You can't fool me.
3 biggest conspiracies on the planet, man. The moon landing, Area 51, and Rick and Bob are 2 people.
Well, and we're gonna prove it. We're gonna have Rick and Bob standing on the moon with an alien.
If I could take this down in one convention, we'll go to the moon, we'll storm Area 51, we'll see Robert Bevan and Rick Gualtieri in the same place. God, so many lies destroyed in one weekend.
I can't wait to see the blowback on the interwebs there. Nothing makes sense anymore.
Russian hackers, man. That's what they'll put it down to. That's what they want you to think.
We've probably talked A&D Con to death, although I guarantee we could probably talk it more to death. Just beat that dead horse into the ground. But today we wanted to start off before diverging into whatever sewer we wind up in by spending a little bit of time talking about It Part 2.
Yeah, speaking of sewers, the most dramatic scenes in It Part 2 happen in the sewer, much like in our podcast. There's a connection there. I don't know, I kind of wanted to talk about It Part 2, because as listeners of this podcast may know, I'm a cranky old man, and I hate your fucking remakes. But I think It Part 1 was the first remake, well maybe not, there's been other great remakes obviously, I'm just a prick, where I thought not only was this remake done, but it was kind of necessary. Well, it didn't feel unnecessary. The original TV series had its charms, it had Tim Curry, but for a movie, I thought it was a pretty decent handling of the material.
I think the thing to keep in mind with the original TV is like, yeah, Tim Curry was great. I mean, his Pennywise is just awesome. But at the end of the day, it was a made-for-TV movie. They're only working with so much budget. They got to cut a lot of shit. They obviously can't go for a heavy R rating and stuff. So they had a lot of restrictions on them, which in theory, a 2-part R-rated horror movie should not have.
Yeah.
Minus the child orgy, maybe.
Well, yeah, let's not talk about the child orgy. Nobody wants to talk about the child orgy. Not even Stephen King wants to talk about the child orgy.
I'm kind of curious. I should just chime in now and get it out in the open. I've not read the book or seen the TV series or either part of the whatever's happening now.
What a surprise!
Well, I'll just say the book. It is my favorite book of all time. I have read it well over a dozen times. There's always something new to find. It's really long. It's like it's one of those things you got to invest in. It's almost like a Drew Hayes book, but with a child orgy.
There you go, Stephen King. If you're out there and you need a blurb, it was definitely his kind of magnum opus. I would think. I did think it definitely reading it meant a lot to him. Not just the exploration of the idea of horror, but the kind of Americana and exploration of certain times and places in small town America that it frequently pops up in Stephen King's work. I think it is probably, if you have to say what's Stephen King about, you'd give them it and not one of the other books.
Yeah, I mean one thing I love about Stephen King, it's both love and hate, but I kind of hate because he kind of does it all the time. But I kind of love that he doesn't have these squeaky clean characters. Like there's so many characters who just have these like deep dark secrets that kind of make them not wonderful, but like it makes them real. But as I said, it's kind of a love hate where it's kind of like, okay, that's great, but then like he kind of tends to do it in every book where like it's like, oh, okay, here's the small town sheriff who's actually a pedophile. Oh, and in this book, here's the small town barber who's also a pedophile.
So many pedophiles. That's what I like about Stephen King. I think that's part of his special. It's not a pedophile bit. Jesus, let me explain. The fact that I think like Salem's Lot was him saying, I want to do Dracula, but I want to do it in small town America. And the Gunslinger Saga was, I want to do Lord of the Rings, but I want to make it very American, about the kind of American Western mythos, which it was for a little while, until it went way off the rails. But yeah, I mean, I've always liked that about him. This way he kind of injects magic and horror and, otherworldly mystique into the familiar and mundane. And I think it's like 50% weren't the 50s an odd place, and 50% weren't the 50s an odd place because there's a monstrous paranormal clown murdering everyone. And that's very cool. And I think the obviously the film wasn't set in the 50s, it was set in the 80s, but same gig. They kind of, as much as you could do, I guess, in a 90-minute film or however long it was, captured the essence of the book pretty well, I thought. Yeah, so I was impressed with it part 1. I think I'm looking forward to it part 2. I know it's just released. I think by the time this goes out, most of the people interested in seeing it would have seen it. Because that's what a lot of people don't understand about Stephen King. Say, oh, he's a horror writer. He's not just a horror writer. He's a fantasy horror writer. And I think it's been a lot more easy for people to capture the horror element when they try and adapt his work than the fantasy horror element.
I really would not agree because, I mean, there's been some really good Stephen King movies, but I hate to say, but I think the adaptations have maybe been more not good than good.
No, I'll completely agree. It tends to be his shorter stuff, is more to the point stuff, like The Green Mile, often makes quite good adaptations. But when somebody tries to capture one of his kind of principal works, unless they just go off the rails and kind of do their own thing, like The Shining, they tend to fail.
Yeah. And in all fairness, he did too, because Stephen King directed Maximum Overdrive, which I think was the movie that kind of made him back up and be like, okay, this directing thing actually is hard. Maybe I won't say shit about it.
Stick to cameos.
Yeah, to be fair, you think you can do anything when you're on enough coke. And that movie is definitely testament to just how annoying people on a lot of coke are to people who aren't. But yeah, I completely get it. And tell you what, it's not a flaw in a writer at all that their work can't be adapted easily. I don't think there's a lot of writers out there where we complain about all the time, oh, it's nothing like the book. A lot of the times it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'm a big Terry Pratchett fan. There's been a lot of worthy attempts at adaptation of Terry Pratchett, but he's a very hard author to adapt to the screen and to get the same kind of vibe and humour and warmth that novels have. It's just a very difficult thing to do. There are people who've come close and not so close, and I don't mind that.
I'm more than happy to say it's like if one of my favorite movies of all time, Jaws, if that had been closer to the book, I think the movie would have kind of sucked. because
fair, yeah.
Part of what makes Jaws work is, well, it's let's be honest, it's not like the crappy mechanical shark. It's the fact that you have 3 awesomely strong leads who just play off so well against each other, and even like the crustiest of them, Quint, he's still like likable. Whereas if the characters in the book, I think they're purposely made not likable. And I think if you had put that on the screen, it would have been an hour and a half of watching 3 people that you can't wait for the shark to eat.
You know what? This is probably sacrilege for a writer to say, but there's a lot to be said for the charismatic interpretation of a trained actor. Now, I would even put this to audiobooks. I think you could probably rescue bad writing with a great narrator. I'm not saying there's not disadvantages to a translation, because the wonderful thing about books is it goes directly into your head and creates a scene in your head, and it's yours. But if we're talking about entertainment for the masses and everyone's seeing the same thing, obviously the writing and the meat of the book is important, but there's an element of necessary translation there. And I think that's the secret of a good remake, is somebody translating it for a different medium, maybe not just being adamant about being true to the text, because that, I mean, I don't know. Can anyone think of a remake that's been really true to the book and not sucked? Lord of the Rings comes to mind.
Yes, but here's the thing: they cut a lot. There are purists out there who will die on the hill that Tom Bombadil should have been in that fucking movie.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, but even I'm watching the movie and then reading the book, and I'm thinking, where exactly the fuck would you have put him?
Also, the end of the movie, it felt like it already had like 6 endings, but the book, Jesus Christ, that just keeps going and going. It's what's his face goes back to the Shire and calls himself Sharky or whatever, and like he's a gangster from the 50s, and he builds like an industrial complex or something. What? Am I remembering this right?
I'm sure that was very important to Tolkien's vision.
Right.
But, a filmmaker has to make a sensible decision where he says, look, we've got 30 endings here. Can we trim this down to less than 10? Just because, people have got to pee. And also millions and millions of dollars, probably. So I appreciate a good translated work, even if it doesn't really reflect the source material that well. Speaking of which, I don't know if you guys have caught up with The Boys on Amazon or Preacher.
Oh, is there a new season of Preacher?
Oh, there's been a couple of seasons. I'm just raising it because it's relevant to my point.
I mean, recently? I think I've seen 2 seasons.
Yeah, there's 2 seasons.
Oh, never mind then.
I've read the original Preacher and I read a little bit of The Boys. And Garth Ennis is like this. He's this edgy boy in comic books, and his stuff is very deliberately, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. Very punk. And it's very cool. But when they adapted Preacher and when they adapted The Boys, they kind of toned that down a bit. And I'm going to be honest, for that medium, it made a better story. Preacher made a lot more sense on TV, even though it's still wacky and out there and pretty punk, than it did in the comics. And The Boys made a lot more sense. I'm not saying these adaptations, well, yeah, maybe a little bit more mature, maybe a little bit more softened for a general audience, but they made a lot more sense for the medium they were playing on. And that's not to disparage the original works. They will still be talked about for years to come, and that's great. But
no, you make perfect sense. Sometimes you have to tone it down a little bit because in a comic book or in a written medium, you can maybe like The Boys, for example. There's a lot of brutal rapes in the Boys. But it's like, it's kind of like, okay, you put that on the TV and it's going to be like an ick factor for some. But it's like, there's also one of those, like, okay, are you just making it fucking gratuitous or something?
Yeah. Well, Garth Ennis was all about that. And in a comic book medium and what he was and who he was, it makes total sense. But when you're kind of taking it outside that medium and translating it for, whatever story beats are necessary for how it's being presented on screen, I can understand what they do with it, and they got a great product out of it. And that's not to say, the adaptation's better than the original. It's just you can enjoy both for what they are without feeling like anything's sold out at all.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things I think something like there are certain times things that like just from a certain aspect just don't make sense watching, or just like destroy the I guess the enjoyability, and I'll say, for example, an example that comes to my mind, and I'm sure this is a horrible example, is like Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, which almost everybody loves to joke about. Is pretty much just the Jesus the Jesus Chainsaw Massacre, because it's like 2 hours of him just getting the shit kicked out of him.
Well, he's definitely found what he likes about the source material, which is beating up on a Jewish guy.
Oh, God.
I might have to cut that joke. Wow. I don't know how powerful Mel Gibson is these days. No, I'm joking. He's obviously tried to get to the crux of an emotional reaction of the source material, which, to be fair, is pretty old.
Yeah.
I'm told, and in need of updating. And yeah, I think he definitely hit that emotional mark. He didn't betray anything.
He hit that emotional mark, but there's also the sense that he might have just gone too far with it, where like after a while you either do one of two things. Either you horrify your audience into like numbness, or you desensitize them.
That sounds like the same thing.
Well, yeah, it's a difficult tightrope to tread. And who better to tread that tightrope than Mel Gibson, a man renowned for his historical accuracy and even temperament. Anyway, enough of the Mel Gibson jokes. Like I said, I don't know how powerful he is these days. But Robert Bevan, I'm going to throw this to you. I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm going to give you a subject matter you know something about.
Uh-oh.
What did you think about the adaptation of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency?
Wow, yeah.
I must say the most recent adaptation, because there was a British adaptation which was good, but everybody ignored. I'm talking about the Netflix one.
That was not at all the Dirk Gently books, but I really enjoyed it. Nevertheless,
yeah.
I mean, you could readapt that and follow the books more closely or at all, and you'd have a totally different series.
Well, I think the British one tried to do that, which might explain why no one remembers or cares about it.
I would love to see it, though. I mean, well,
look it up.
Just, I'm thinking, I read those so long ago. All I remember is his horoscope said, "You're fat and stupid and persistently wear a ridiculous hat that you should be ashamed of," or something. And
holy shit! Is that November by any chance?
No, but that was from the book, and it was like his friend that worked at the paper that wrote horoscopes specifically to fuck with him. Yeah, fat and stupid and a shitty hat does not describe the Dirk Gently we got in this new adaptation at all.
I thought it was a wonderful, bizarre, and quirky series. But you're right. It took liberties with the source material.
I don't know. Was there anything from the source material in there?
I don't think so. It was definitely its own thing. Do you think it respected the... I don't know.
It respected the original material by staying the fuck away from it.
Actually, that's pretty wise. Sometimes, to respect the original material, you got to stay the fuck away from it.
But
I think that's actually a valid point.
I'm just saying, they could have called that anything. I mean,
yeah.
It's not like they... I don't know. It's like, here's our adaptation of Bambi, but it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your adaptation. I'd like to buy in.
Let's not forget like Hollywood ego there. There is always going to be that those directors and stuff who basically just look at the source material with nothing but, or producers who look at the source material with nothing but contempt along the lines of, this is popular. Let's shit on all those people who really enjoy it and make it our own way.
But no, I don't think that's what they did, because like Steve and I both said, I thought it was great.
Well, that's the thing. It
not
was
the books.
It was not the books at all, but it was definitely someone's passion project.
Oh yeah.
And it's not as if Dirk Gently is like the most renowned thing Douglas Adams ever did.
No.
By any stretch, people vaguely know about it, maybe. But
he did the other thing too.
He did the other thing, which everybody knows, and which is yet to have a convincing television adaptation. I would put out there.
Man, I wish
Good
they
efforts,
could combine the old BBC show with the the most recent movie.
Good efforts, both.
Yeah,
but not quite there. It's the same with Terry Pratchett. It's a difficult thing to just stick on screen.
Well, the thing about it is all the the best parts are the narration and little asides and everything.
Same with Pratchett.
That's what the BBC got right about it.
Yeah.
They'd cram those in there.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work as well as when you're kind of reading it gently to yourself. I don't know if anyone saw the recent Good Omens adaptation.
No.
Now, a lot of people are kind of saying, oh, yeah, it's a Neil Gaiman thing, but it wasn't. It was a Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And I will be honest, as much as I like Neil Gaiman, the best parts of that book were Pratchett. And they were the hardest parts to adapt to the screen, even though it was a sterling effort and I really enjoyed it. But there was a moment there where an old man's looking at this demon coming past and the car is on fire, and the narrator comes in to explain the joke. And it's word for word pretty much to what Terry Pratchett wrote, and I can tell it was Pratchett. It just didn't work as well. It just did not translate as well. Having this omniscient narrator explain the joke to you worked on the page, but on the screen, you need to do that differently.
Yeah.
So as much as I enjoyed that, I thought it was a wonderful adaptation. I really enjoyed it. But it's still, yeah.
I just want to say, when you asked if I'd seen the adaptation, my no was instinctive. I have seen the first episode, and I've read the book. Like, wow.
Well, oh, wow.
I mean, there's also like Watchmen. I mean, we had the movie there. That there's an HBO series coming out, I think, next month. I think at this point they're really just like putting it to film, not so much to like, I think they're only doing it just to piss off Alan Moore.
Yeah, I think it is basically a hate crime against Alan Moore. They should leave Watchmen alone. Zack Snyder was a good effort. It gets a lot more shit than what it should. There's a bit too much slow motion fucking tomfoolery in there. And like all the characters who are supposed to look like sad and fat were kind of, actually, no, you still look a million times better than I ever will, so you've kind of lost a point there. But, that's Hollywood. And they did a Hollywood version of a script that was very anti-Hollywood. So the flaws in it are understandable. But then again, I thought Rorschach was a badass interpretation.
Yeah.
I liked all the characters. I liked the way it was presented. It was beautifully shot. I don't know how anybody felt watching it without being familiar with the comics. I don't have that perspective because I'd already read the comic. Mm-hmm. But a good effort. Gets a little bit more shit than it deserves, I think.
Yeah, actually, I would tend to agree. I mean, I watched it and I was just like, they didn't do a bad job as far as I can tell.
I think any problems people have with it came with the complexity of adapting something written by someone who's fiercely against his work ever being adapted. And it's a point I guess spiritually agree with. He says comics can do things that books and movies can't, and that's what The Watchmen is. And if you read The Watchmen and you read it again to appreciate the artistry and craft of what it's done, you can see where he's coming from, and then maybe it shouldn't have been adapted. But saying that, I enjoyed the adaptation. I'd watch it again.
Yeah, I think just part of being a fan of anything, no matter how much somebody says, oh well, this is a book and it should never, I think part of being a mega fan of anything is wanting to see the word spread and seeing it in other mediums and stuff.
Yeah, see what somebody else. I mean, imagine that this book exists in your head, and now you can see what somebody else thinks of it. Whether you're disappointed or not, that's still a wonderful opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people shit on the recent Godzilla movie that came out a couple months back, but as a kid who my memories of watching early Godzilla movies when I was 3 and 4 and stuff, I didn't see this. I didn't see the shitty Toho effects. I saw these rampaging monsters, and in my mind, this was bigger than life. So seeing that on the screen actually like that was it just kind of blew my shit away there.
Did people shit on that?
Oh yeah, a lot of people did.
I wasn't aware of that. I thought, yours is the only opinion I heard, and you liked it.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And I remember the one that they had. What was it, in the 90s or late 90s, early?
Oh, God.
I saw that in the movie theater, and wow, I don't care about Godzilla, but god damn, it was bad.
Yeah, they put a lot of stuff into building up that movie. There was a whole website with boards and stuff full of Godzilla fans, and holy shit, it was that movie in some ways just felt the producer came in and said, all of you people who love this, open wide because we're going to take a steaming dump down your throat.
Hey, we bought the rights to Godzilla. Fuck you, Godzilla fans. An interesting point, Rick, about what you said about watching Godzilla movies as a kid, and I think this is all true of movies when you're a kid. I think your imagination as a kid steps up to the game when you're watching a movie in a way that it doesn't as an adult. That it's harder to impress us with fantasy than it is to impress 8-year-old us. Yeah. And that's fine. And I think that's where a lot of the kind of don't adapt this comes from. It's made kind of an impression that we can never really recapture. But at the same time, I got a lot of experience watching movies. I studied film. I know a fucking cash grab when I see one, and or when somebody's misunderstood the intent of the original. And that's kind of why I give Dirk Gently a pass, not just because I really enjoyed it, but it sort of understood the intent of the vibe of the books, at least.
If you want to see an opposite of that, look at the whole making behind or the movie that didn't come out, Superman Lives, and there was a whole fuckery behind, and it was just obvious that it was being made as a cash grab by people who just really hated the character.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just like, if you don't fucking like this, stay away from it. I don't care how much money it's going to make you. I realize I'm speaking an alien language there to certain people, but just stay away from it. I got to clarify, as a writer, you want to buy my work just to shove it in your ass and shit it out live on camera, please do. I'm absolutely fine with that. I have no scruples when it comes to you cutting me a check. But as a viewer, don't do that.
I was going to say, I see somebody showing up at Bob's doorstep. Be like, okay, so we get this idea. We want to pay you for the Caverns and Creatures license, but we essentially want to make it a remake of Mazes and Monsters and make it this deep psychological thing. It's just just keep adding zeros, motherfucker.
we gotta get Tom Hanks back. He's going to be super depressed about the whole thing. We've got to make sure that he turns to the camera every 3 scenes and said, "Oh my God, I wish I'd never started playing Caverns and Creatures because it's satanic and makes people kill themselves, kids."
Tom Hanks is Cooper.
Oh no, I've shit myself. What is Dungeons and Dragons doing to me, parents?
Dungeons and Dragons and chili.
All right, that brings me on to an interesting take on this as writers. No, not shit. I mean, we explored that in depth enough, Bevan. As a writer, what would you put on the limit? Let's say some Hollywood guy, some stereotypical Hollywood guy with white powder in his mustache and a shiny suit comes to your door. He's got a suitcase full of money. What is the line when Captain Cocaine Mustache says he wants to do with your project where you say, actually, no?
Not enough money?
You know what? I would say, because how many adaptations you see, book adaptations you see, where it comes to the screen, there's one movie of maybe the start of a series, it sucks, and you never see anything about it again. I might. And I'll admit, them dumping shitloads of cash in my lap does not hurt. But I might if I think it's actually going to kill the prospect of there being more of these, that might be my limit. But again, it's a lot has to do with contracts and stuff. It's so, I mean, if I'm if I'm signing on the dotted line, they're here's a fat check, and that contract basically says, "Fuck you, Rick, you have no say in this." Well, it's not much I can do about it. And I don't think they kind of give you those details up front when they come in, when they come in in their cocaine mobile and pitch this stuff to you. But
I haven't got time for details. I'm high as fuck.
I mean, if they offered me that whole thing, it's hey, you can come in as a creative consultant. We will value your input. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, that I guess that would be my thing, is something that's actually going to be so bad that I think it's going to damage my original works.
Well, I don't know. I think short of somebody saying, "We think your written works are the perfect vehicle to take a more sympathetic look at Hitler," I think other than that, I'd just be like, "You guys know what you're doing, or you don't. Give me the money. Give me the money so I can write more stuff."
Well, that's just it. I mean, that's a tough question to answer right now, because a big enough bag full of money would
Yeah.
solve a lot of problems right now. And yeah, that and it would free me up. A big enough bag set me up for life. I could write whatever I wanted.
Okay, I have a good example of one where I think that actually worked out in the author's favor. Do you guys remember the old Dresden Files series on Sci-Fi?
I remember it existing.
Yeah, it existed. There was one or two elements about it I liked, but for the most part, the fans of the books were like, "The fuck is this?" Because they made their own interpretation. They changed around a bunch of stuff. They got Paul Blackthorne to play Harry Dresden. He's a good actor. Don't get me wrong, but like he didn't really fit the character, and it was. But at the same time, where a lot of people were just like hating on it, I think it also I've heard it more than once because the series made me intrigued enough to start reading the books, and I've heard that from more than one person where it was like, okay, the series is not great, it only lasted one season, but there was enough there where people were like, okay, I want to check out these books and see how they are.
Actually, Rick, you raised a very good point there. I think, and here's what I think. I think the casual viewer is maybe not the same as the casual reader. And I think a show being incredibly successful doesn't mean everybody's going to go suddenly pick up the source material. So a show being incredibly unsuccessful, and people saying, man, this is shit, and people saying, but the books were better, maybe has as much chance of picking up new readers as the other.
You might be right because I can think of very few other movies, series, whatever I've read or I've watched where I've said I want to check out the books. That's like that kind of stands as like a kind of a unique example of that.
Mine was Fight Club. I saw the movie first, and then I went back and read the book. And that's I don't know if it was like a Jaws level difference like we were talking about before. I never read Jaws, but yeah, I think I enjoyed the movie way more than I did the book.
Well, it rhythmically controlled the beats of the revelation, and it was an incredibly well directed movie.
Like what you were saying before about there are things you can do with comics that you can't do in film. That I mean, there are things you can do in film that you can't do in other mediums.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean you have inflection in a movie. You have charisma. You have all sorts of things that you can put in a book, but I think you can sum up emotions a lot easier just by looking at somebody's face versus reading a page of I'm sad dialogue.
Well, if you consider the entire rhythm of Fight Club, and I don't just mean the banging soundtrack, I just mean the whole rhythm of how it's made, how it's presented visually. Can't do that in a book.
No.
And I think, as much as I like Chuck Palahniuk.
All right, yeah, I was going to say that too. I enjoy his writing.
I really love his writing. I think he's a
fantastic
writer. I cannot for the life of me pronounce his name. Paul Guiltari. But as much as I love his writing, I think that movie was its own thing. It was fairly true to the book, but just very much a stylistic masterpiece.
What's it? Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Functionally, I mean, from the book to the movie, I guess you can see sort of the elements that are there, but I mean, they're both vastly different things.
I mean, Stephen King always complains about that. It's like, my Jack Torrance was a slow burn character where you learn about his alcoholism slowly, and it kind of slowly took over his life, and that was a metaphor for the supernatural element. And in the movie, it was just like, it's Jack Nicholson. He's crazy as fuck. But that was brilliant. And it was also wonderfully directed with this eerie kind of dream logic pace to it. And also Jack Nicholson just tearing the shit out of the thing, literally with an axe. I mean, there's a reason that the original Jack Torrance in the book had a croquet mallet, and Jack Torrance in the movies had an axe, because he was hacking up that scenery in more than one sense, but in a wonderful way.
And you can argue that is arguably the best Stephen King adaptation, on film. But at
it.
the same time, you know, when you read the book and see the movie and try to like reconcile the two, it's just like, yeah, these are two different animals.
Yeah,
Mind you, not as different as Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man and the movie The Lawnmower Man.
Oh shit! What happened? What the fuck
Oh,
happened there?
did you? Yeah.
Here's the thing. That short story, The Lawnmower Man, I fucking loved it. But there's no way I read that and thought, I wish this was a movie. It just belonged as this weird, quirky short story. And obviously somebody bought up the rights to that and went, what the fuck am I going to do with this?
It's funny though. I did not realize that because I've only ever seen bits and pieces of The Shining. Never read it. I mean, most of what I know of it is just pop culture. I see, but I didn't know that bit about the mallet. And have you guys seen The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray?
Oh yeah, that's charming.
But yeah, when he breaks through the door, he finds a mallet. He busts through the door with it and says, "Here's Johnny." And I wonder if that's a nod.
Holy shit!
I guarantee that's a nod.
I mean, that's a pretty sophisticated nod for The Man Who Knew Too Little.
There was a lot of. I mean, it was goofy, but there was a lot of sophistication, a lot of complicated buildup of jokes. I love that movie.
It was aware of its own goofiness. It was very much just a comedy. And you don't get many kind of just a comedies of that type these days.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see Bill Murray like not being the clever guy and he's the idiot and he pulls it off well.
Yeah, he's not I think it also worked that they set that in England because I think one of the main differences between English and American comedy is we don't have the kind of raising an eyebrow at the camera, everyman comedy hero as much. We're much more about the twat, basically. And, and he was the twat. And I think that kind of worked well in that English setting. If you want my cultural take on it, Bevan.
Thanks, bloke.
How dare you? Getting back to what you said about watching things and not necessarily being interested in the original source material, I was a big fan of The Walking Dead when it didn't suck. I mean, there were bits where it sucked and there were bits where it's absolutely brilliant. I have never felt the urge to pick up the original comic book in the slightest. And I think that's, as a writer and somebody who kind of supports and champions and shout outs for original creators, that's it's a bit dire, isn't it? Should probably check that out, but I just haven't had the urge.
Walking Dead for me was like nothing else is on, watch that, and that lasted a few seasons, and then like the nothing started looking better and better.
So yeah, I think if getting back to the adaptation question, I think comic book is quite pertinent in this because there's a lot of horror stories about people writing for big comic companies and basically signing over every right. They get paid per page, and it's the artist that makes it, and it's the writer to make it, but it's the company that owns it. And then they decide to take these works and put them on the screen, and these original brilliant creators aren't kind of getting the paycheck they deserve. That makes me angry.
Yeah.
I think any creative who's put in that position, I think that's basically immoral. But that's the ins and outs of these contracts.
I can't think most of these people don't know what they're getting into, though.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Sometimes you don't. Did you guys read about that shit with agents and bundling a while back?
I read it. I didn't understand it.
Well, basically, it came down to when an agent is working for you, they're supposed to be representing you, trying to get the best deal. Mm-hmm. But apparently, with this whole concept of bundling, it kind of allowed some of these big agents to essentially be representing both sides. So it's like, oh well, I'm your agent, but I'm also their agent. So it wound up being essentially this this circle jerk where they would just fuck the little guy, make sure the big guy got their shit, and make sure they got their big slice of the pie from both sides.
Yeah, it's a system that supports the money men over the creator. And I think it's just, to me, it'd be a moral obligation. Look, I bought your property for $2,000. oh, it took off and I made $1 billion. But you got your $2,000, didn't you? Yeah. They'll all go buy your original material. No, they won't. You've basically just made millions while shortchanging me. I think that's basic. And when you say, they knew what they were getting into, but I don't know. Say you're a struggling creator and you've got this brilliant idea, and Cocaine Mustache Man comes around and said, hey, I can pay your bills for a couple of months. You're going to take that shit. And
see, I mean, I've turned down 2 option deals because, and I think mostly it's just because I'm a paranoid motherfucker when it comes to when it comes to rights and IP stuff. But these guys, a lot of these people, they will throw a contract at you. They will flash those stars in your eyes. And I think a lot of especially newer authors going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to sign anything so I can either be a published or I can have optioned. And rather than doing their due diligence, which is getting a lawyer on their side to read it and say, this is bullshit. And I mean, that's the thing. I did that. And the thing that sucks is I wound up being something from 2 optioning deals rather than actually making money. I wound up $1,500 in the hole because I actually spent money on a lawyer to look at it and say, this is bullshit. And then go back to them and say, this is bullshit. And they were like, well, take it or leave it. And I was like, well, fuck you, leave it. But that's the thing. It's if I had signed these, not only would I have given up far more for an option deal, I would have the first one, I would have given up essentially rights to everything. I couldn't even sell my own T-shirts now if I had signed this thing. And there was also some bullshit clause where, hey, if they didn't make any progress in so and so time, I had to pay back a certain percentage, and the lawyer's like, the fuck is this?
if they didn't make any progress,
exactly.
It's predatory practices like that. Well, fucking in anything, That's what kills.
But the truth of the matter is, it's the whole fucking industry that's predatory.
Well, not anymore though, because I mean that's why we all have a career right now. Is this whole self-publishing thing changed things. To do what we're doing now. What is it? 10, 15 years ago, we'd be completely reliant on the big publishers.
I mean, I try and keep up with comic book news, and I know things ain't looking so good for those people. I know a lot of the old established artists are now turning to crowdfunded projects where they just own it. Everything they get is theirs.
Things are changing, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There is definitely a good, but I think it's kind of like the old guard. Which still kind of controls a good chunk of the money, and I don't mean all when I said predatory, I meant kind of I guess the transition from book to screen. I think that is there's still a shitload of predatory there because you have these middlemen and these producers who are used to their cocaine money, and they're going to fight kicking and screaming to make sure that they keep that as long as possible, and it's I mean, more than once, people have asked, well, what if somebody came to you and said, hey, I want to make a fan film, but I want to make it keep it whatchamacallit, I guess loyal to the source. And it's like, fuck yeah, I'd be all for that shit. But I think we live in changing times right now, but the times are still changing where there's still that old guard. And because there's so many new players in the market, they're still raking in big bucks because people don't know enough to say, fuck this.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, it's also a matter of technical issues. Anybody with a computer and a word processor can write and publish a book. But, the tools just aren't available for anyone to go shoot their own cinematic masterpiece, cheaply. And, you know what I'm saying?
The tools are increasingly there to do that. Obviously, not on the but they're always going to have to compete with the big money men. So, them taking a hit to get into the door, and maybe this is less about authors and more about comic book artists and filmmakers, where the money down you spend on it is a lot more. The temptation for somebody to say, "Yeah, I'll give you this much money, but then it's mine," is there as much for them to take a bad deal. And I do find that a bit predatory. I don't think creative industry should be looking at the creator and going, you know what? I'm going to bum you. That's it's not good. I'm morally against it. I do think it should be a case of yeah, and it should all be in the contract at the start. It should be staggered. If we make this much, you get this much. If we make this much, you get this much. If we make nothing, you get nothing. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and none of that bullshit Hollywood accounting where it's like, oh, no movie ever makes a profit. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of bullshit there. But yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, you're the writer, you're the creator, you essentially own the origin of this characters. You made $3,000, Brad Pitt over here made 15 million, and the producers are like, have to hire migrant workers to shovel the money into
Yeah, I think there should be one phrase that every creative knows, and that's percentage of gross or percentage of merchandise, because that's where they will try and fuck you. Oh yeah, it's like we netted this much. It's like, all right, how much of that was creative accounting? I don't give a shit about the net. Show me the gross.
Yeah.
But not everybody's got the power to do that. And if they're desperate and they need to pay the bills, they could sell their baby and never see nothing for it. And that's tragic.
I agree with both of you. I'm just trying desperately to be optimistic.
Oh, God bless you. But you're right. No, I think you've got a very good point about, fuck those people, take it into your own hands. But in certain industries, you're never going to have to clout. Even in our industry, I mean, we all know there are published authors out there who it's basically like having somebody Miley Cyrus level, while there's some talented busker on the street who's making his rent money from being much more talented. Same deal with a lot of authors.
And Bob, to your point about being optimistic, you're 100% right. I mean, let's be honest. We're like six chuckle fucks from from various backgrounds here. And we're hosting our own fucking convention because we've managed to entertain how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. And in what universe or in what time frame before now would that have been fucking possible?
Yes.
Or at least without us becoming the Spice Girls and being owned by some producer telling us what to do.
Well, considering we spent our last episode literally swimming in shit. No, you're right. That doesn't have conventional mainstream appeal. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting times for creatives, but yeah, I do get morally outraged by some of the creative shenanigans that goes on, where the guy on camera gets paid, ridiculous, life-changing, you never have to work again money, and some guy who actually came up with a shit that he's surfing on, he maybe gets to pay off his car. I think I'm not happy about that. But yeah, let's be optimistic. Maybe creatives can have more resources today than ever to handle their own destinies.
Yeah, you just got to keep your eyes open and try to not be stupid about it.
Well, I understand the desperation. I think every author's probably been through the same, where you write a book and maybe it does a little bit well and you think, holy shit, maybe that's all I got. And that's kind of it's certainly a mental hurdle I had to go past, and most creatives have to go past. Just imagine you're at that first mental hurdle and you're thinking, holy shit, maybe that's all you got. And Captain Cocaine Mustache Fancy Car comes along. Says, hey, I'll give you your next 3 months rent for that project.
And they're going to feed you that same shit. Your subconscious is feeding you, going, you never know, this might be it. You should take the opportunity while you got it.
This is your one shot, kid. Yeah, life's brutal. Yeah, I do often think about that. All those fucking buskers out there with more musical ability in their pinky finger than some popular artist. Right time, right place, right message. It does annoy me slightly, but yeah, that's life.
Exactly. I mean, truth of the matter, I mean, almost everybody wants to throw out talent, this, blah blah blah. But let's be perfectly honest. Luck always plays a factor in it.
Yeah.
It's
right time, right place, right exposure. It's the same story for every success story in history. I do have this is the exploitation story I like to tell now and again. And it's somebody, Bevan, is optimistic. It's somebody overcoming it.
I can't believe I'm the optimistic one.
It was David Bowie. And he was a young kid. Obviously had talent. Obviously had looks. Obviously he was going places. And he got scooped up by a record label.
Oh,
and
I think I know the story. Go ahead.
Yeah. They drilled him down to like a 6-album deal. And he is like, yes, I'll take that. I'm a kid from fucking lower middle class London suburb who wasn't going anywhere. And when he got big, they were basically like, we've got you now, mate. It's all down on paper. You've got even another 3 albums. So what he did as a creative is like basically say, all right, here are your 3 albums. Fuck you. The Laughing Gnome. And, he just kind of like, he just put shit out there. And even the stuff he just put out there was better than what a lot of people can do because he was David fucking Bowie. And then when he was free of that contractual obligation, he put on a suit. He reinvented pop for the 80s. And he made so much fucking money.
He came out with a Let's Dance right out of the gate after that. Right? Yeah.
And he must have been keeping that to himself.
Oh, I think he was. I read that, yeah.
It's like, you motherfuckers, you think you're having me over. You wait till my wings are unclipped, thou fiend. Then we shall dance. Then we shall put on our blue suede shoes and dance the blues.
I like those stories where it's like, yeah, we got you, motherfucker. But it's like, oh, well, now the tide has changed. I'm like big enough to stand on my own, so I'm just going to shit out the remainder of my contract.
I will build a golden palace on your grave, you fuck.
Yeah, but I think as a result, some of the contracts then got even more predatory along the lines of like, we have right of first refusal for like everything you do for the rest of your life.
No, I remember hearing about, I think it's a band called 30 Seconds to Mars who were big for like 6 months and they spent millions on their music videos. So like they got, hey, we got all this clout. Everybody knows our name. We're raking in so much money. It's like, yeah, here's your check for 2 cents, you good looking cunts. Yeah, a lot of sharks out there, man. A lot of sharks and a lot of meat.
Yeah, or like what's like that the whole thing where like in the record industry, here's your advance, but you have to use advance to pretty much pay for every fucking thing.
Yeah, they'll fuck you. There's just too many stories out there in comics, in books, in music, in acting. Far too many stories of people getting screwed over. It is depressing, but it is a business. I guess you just need to. The wonderful thing about the internet is everybody's more educated than they've ever been. So,
one would argue people are stupider than they've ever been, at least in some sense.
Well, let me rephrase that. The information.
The Earth is flat, motherfuckers.
Maybe they're too educated and they see the truth about the flat Earth.
But like Rick said, be paranoid. But no, I'm serious.
Be paranoid, but be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody offers you some shit, give it a good hard think, do some research, talk to a lawyer.
Have some faith in your talent.
I mean, Rick said he lost money with the lawyer and stuff, but I mean, how much more might he have, been fucked out of without that?
If the reins for his baby were taken away from him. Not that I'm suggesting, listener, that you should put a baby in reins. I'm not being literal. But yeah, if they were wrested away from him, it was a small price to pay.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, don't be afraid to walk away. Because here's the thing: if the person at the other side of the table is feeding you bullshit, like, hey, you may never get a chance again, maybe consider that they probably have a vested interest in the shit they're selling you. It's kind of like when you're shopping for a car, and and that salesperson is feeding you everything you want to hear. Maybe, just maybe, they're a bit biased.
Or if they're saying you may never get this chance again, how much fucking confidence do they have in your work?
That is true.
That's a great point. If anyone uses that line on it, just say, I thought you liked this. Well, I like it, but nobody else might. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get in my Lamborghini and go home.
Oh, that is an excellent point.
Yeah, just all you Stardust children out there, protect yourself from the sharks.
How the fuck do we get here from clowns in the sewer?
Well, we're talking about adaptations.
Yeah, that was a pretty straightforward road, I think.
Yeah, no, that's actually very coherent. Well done, lads. Well done. All right, well, that turned into a pretty lengthy bonus section, talking originally about a scary clown movie. You've probably seen it by now. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'm definitely going to see it soon. And we don't have, I'm going to be honest with you listeners, we've got our heads up our asses right now about the Vegas Con, and we haven't had a lot of time to work on the side quests as much as we would like to. But please be assured, we will be coming back after the con with games, with guests. We're going to step this up a bit. But in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed it. I know we've got a lot of creatives that listen to this. I hope we gave you something to chew on there. But yeah, I'm sorry, but we are all about the frickin' Vegas Con at the minute.
Yes, now that we've talked about it, we're going to get back to sucking our own dicks.
Yes, it's what we do best. Or if we had the literal athletic prowess to do that, it would definitely be my full-time occupation.
Caverns and creatures would not exist.
Yeah. I was gonna say, hopefully by the time people are listening to this, I'm actually closing in on Vegas and not being devoured by by cannibalistic hillbillies on some back road.
Hopefully, as you listen to this, Rick is covered in coyotes. But yeah, I mean, there's been so much to sort out. We're getting prizes sorted. The schedule is up on Facebook by now. I mean, by the time people listen to this, it's basically con time. I've just been talking to John Luther Davis, the official A&D artist. He's going to be there. I've been looking at the work he's going to be put out. He's going to have an artist table. He's doing like official A&D prints and original artwork and taking requests.
Is he doing tattoos there?
I don't think you could just turn up and do tattoos.
No, you can. Because I talked to them about this before. He's gone to maybe there are tattoo conventions if they have those. I don't know. But yeah, he's done like just tattoos there for people who come up at his tattoo booth.
Well, he hasn't said he's going to do that. But if I come back from this convention with a Temple of the Many Fists imprint on my forehead, you know who to blame. But so I'm mentioning him not. This is already up on the Facebook for those in the know, but for those of you who've got your tickets and on your way, the reason I mention it is he's doing commissioned pieces, so get in there early. He's doing a limited number, so if you want your D&D character drawn or a picture of you, but you've got a massive dick, then get in there, chat him up early.
Yeah. Take advantage of that shit, because I mean, I mentioned sucking our own dicks. Forget that. We should be sucking his for all the awesome work he has done for Authors and Dragons, our comic book, our covers. Just everything he touches just turns to gold.
Are any of the comic book pages like publicly available, or is that just all Patreon?
It's Patreon at the moment, and I will say this for people who aren't turning up to the convention, people aren't our Patreons. If you sign up to the $1.50 tier on our Patreon, you can look at all 21 comic book pages we have available. For those of you who can't do that, fair enough. But we are really hoping to release this as a comic book issue. We'll keep you informed on that. It would be lovely if we could get some kind of hard print done, but at the very least, it will be digitally available for those outside the Patreon at some point.
Yeah, and let me just say, like as a comic book nerd, and I've showed the artwork to a few friends of mine who are also there. It stacks up really fucking well. This is not like like some black and white sketch stuff. This is you read this comic and it's like, holy shit. He takes our dumbass characters and he makes us look good.
Well, I had the wonderful experience of trying to adapt our podcast chaos and insanity into a script that somebody could interpret it. And fucking thank God it was JLD who understands the podcast and knows what we're about, because he has interpreted so well. In fact, the characters look and act so much cooler than in the podcast, which I guess isn't a challenge, but it's given our stuff to the right artist who gets it.
Why didn't we talk about this with all the adaptation shit we were talking about?
Ooh, well, we still can.
yeah.
It's still the same podcast, Ben.
That's true. That's a perfect example of when it's done like better than you could have ever hoped for.
Well, let's put it this way: it takes one issue. It's not. It's not such a far away adaptation. It takes one issue to get us in the well, and there's certain things we can't do. We can't spend a further 3 issues with Klaus trying to get out of the well. That just wouldn't work. But I think we've captured, and I hope those who have seen the comic book pages will agree, we've definitely captured the in the well fuckitude that basically set the tone for the Authors and Dragons.
Yeah, but he makes it so much more badass. I mean, like I even listened to myself doing Silas, and I almost kind of want to just kick my own ass. And like I'm looking at his like interpretation of Silas, and I'm like, fuck yeah, Hell Torag, you know.
He gets it. He really gets it. Every character is like, yeah. That's Klaus, that's Silas, that's Bjork.
And holy shit, his Bjork.
Yeah, I mean, I look at them and go, you had that complicated fight with the demons, but in your mind's eye, you see Bjork hacking up some fucking demons, and JLD, he brings it. He absolutely brings it.
You know what I think is going to be awesome? Because people are going to be coming from the podcast looking at this comic, and like, you know, it's going to be like, oh yeah, this is coming to life. You know what's going to be a mind fuck? If somebody sees the comic first and then comes to the podcast. And it's like, what the fuck is this?
That's my dream, that this gets out there in the physical world and somebody picks up and goes, hey, this is a pretty cool comic book. It's a podcast, you say. And then that's it for them. That is just it for them. They are part of this weird family we've got, and there's no turning back.
We own you now.
You'll never look at another countless fucking D&D podcast the same way again. That's my goal. It's not all about the money. We do, the money is like there so we can do cool stuff.
Like Authors and Dragons Con.
Yes, like Authors and Dragons Con, like Shingles, like all the cool stuff we do. And I'd like to think it's a personal point of pride for our Patreons and everybody who supports us, and even our casual listeners, that we're kind of in on a joke here. And the more that joke gets out into the world, I think, the funnier it is. Yeah, so JLD is going to be there. I haven't met the guy in person yet.
I met him once when I was driving to Comic Palooza. Well, driving back from Comic Palooza, I stopped in and saw him at his tattoo parlor. And he's a cool guy, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting him, and there's going to be other supporters of the podcast. There's people out there who've made us some cool shit. Ian Kaplan, who has been a guest DM here. For the herd of cats we are, it's quite astonishing that we have got this organized.
Yeah, we got James Hunter coming out there, and I mean he just writes the shit out of urban fantasy and lit RPG.
Yeah, I mean there are actual other authors there.
My co-author, award-winning author Ari Carr will be there.
Oh, she thinks she's so big with her award. Let me tell you, I'm going to get really drunk. I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. I'm obviously not going to do that, Rachel, if you're listening. Well, I don't know. I might. We'll see.
Yeah, down at DragonCon, I had her and I had another author, and like somebody's like Rick, you need to get in the middle of them. So it's like an award-winning, author sandwich with you in the middle.
You are the bland filling between his excellent bread.
Yes.
Oh, I don't really believe that, Rick. I think you're an excellent filling. Yeah, it's exciting. And I don't know. I don't want to get too weepy here. But I know there are thousands of people listening to this. And it blows my mind that you are, guys and gals. Thank you for coming with us on this really strange journey. If you can't make the convention, that's understandable. If you can't subscribe to the Patreon, that's understandable. But I'm just really glad you're here with us, because otherwise it's just 6 crazy fucks talking to themselves.
And I would just say, if you can't listen to this podcast, fuck you, because you're not hearing this anyway.
Yeah, fuck you, hypothetical. Wanker. Man, strange times.
But you know something? Pretty awesome times.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all agreed we're a little bit nervous about this. I mean, you guys have been to much bigger cons than I have, but we all agreed that this is the biggest confluence of people who are specifically into A&D that has ever happened in our history.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say the same thing that I was freaking out about earlier online. Is you go to a convention with 10,000 people and 5 people come up to you and say hi. That's pretty fucking awesome. Don't get me wrong. That is the best thing in the fucking planet. And like the high just lasts the entire weekend. But we're going into a convention where there's going to be like, over 100 people there who are going to be doing that same high. And it's just like, that's just like that, like a whole magnitude of awesome beyond, beyond anything I think I can imagine.
I'll take it a step further. I mean, if I go to a convention, like what we were talking about before, most of these people aren't here for us. They're here for, just, it's a convention, it's fantasy shit, whatever. But, so people will come up to my table, ask me what my books are about. That's, the ones that know me and say, hey, I know you, I like your books, great. Even, can you buy something? But even if they don't, I'm flattered. I feel great about seeing it. But most of the people, they pass by the table, they see the books, and what is this about? So I'm just not a people person. And I wish they'd.
It's difficult to explain.
No, but Authors and Dragons Con, they know me. They, if they come to talk to me, they know what they're getting into, and yeah, that's awesome.
You know what this is? This is like skipping the entire origin story movie and just moving on to the second awesome movie.
Moving into the extended universe. Yeah.
We don't have to explain to you who we are. You know who we are. So just come up, talk to us, have a good fucking time, and but mind you, if you do bring a friend along who doesn't know who we are, we will be happy to to pitch that shit.
or do that beforehand.
Yeah, if you've made it all the way to Vegas with your friend and she's like, so where are we going again? Maybe be a better friend. Yeah. I said it in the last side quest. I'll say it again. I am excited. This is exciting. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. I'm not nervous at all.
Really?
Yeah. It's people are coming to see me, and if they like the podcast but don't necessarily like me, they probably won't talk to me. I'm totally cool with that.
I won't lie. I am nervous as fuck all. It just hit me today. Like before this, it was like, yeah, okay, it's cool. But today it hit me, and I'm just like, oh God.
You know what? I got my stand-in Firemaster shorts in the mail today, and I tried them on, and now I'm like, I can't wear these shorts. It would be less obscene if I went pantsless to this convention.
Steve,
and less embarrassing.
If you're not gonna cut what you just said out of the show, you're gonna have to wear those shorts.
I don't have to do anything. Don't slut shame me.
I'm just saying, make a choice now.
I've got my backup shorts. All right. If you see me in shorts that don't encourage children to run away, it's because I've made an intellectual decision based on how much of my balls I can see through the shorts.
Yeah, there is a chance that that whole be careful what you wish for, Bob. He might walk down and be like here I am, and he'd be like, go upstairs and change.
I'm not wishing this. I'm giving some friendly advice. The fans who listen to this episode
want to see your junk.
Yeah.
I can assure everybody listening to this right now with utter confidence, you do not want to see my junk. No, all I'm saying is I've got my backup traditional shorts, and they were disturbing enough. People have seen the video. People have seen the expression on that lady's face.
Oh, that is gold. I love that lady.
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely natural expression, and I appreciate her. But if I wore these other shorts, she wouldn't have that expression on her face
I'm gonna tell
because
you. I want to see it.
all you'd see was the back of her head as she ran away. And that again is a perfectly sensible. But if I can find some way that people can't see my balls when I'm wearing these shorts, I'll try and work it out.
See, the true beauty of the shorts is not that you have to, if not that you have to like wear them in front of 100 Authors and Dragons fans who are going to be cheering you on. The real beauty of the shorts is you have to get from the elevator to those Authors and Dragons fans through the casino.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people to disappoint. I mean, disappointing people who expect to be disappointed is fine, but I might get into that lift, that elevator with a man and his family who just wanted to have a good time at Vegas. They didn't want no man whore in their elevator.
They just wanted some wholesome family time in Vegas.
We'll see. If I can work out the imprint of my balls issue, then I'll wear the horrible little white boy booty shorts.
God damn! I want to see you in an elevator with a family and just turn to them and be like, I give family discounts.
Rick's already pimping me out. My word, this convention is going to be A-okay. Oh man, but I'm a little bit annoyed. I don't think you guys have made any effort to dress up. What's going on with that?
I mean, I'm not making promises I'm not going to keep. I will be in cargo shorts and a couple of different T-shirts, and you can look at my fucked up leg, and hopefully my toenail will have grown more by then. But yeah.
Oh God, put a hole on the table.
You know something? I can't make any promises either, but it's quite possible that that somebody dressed similar to me in cargo shorts and a t-shirt, but with incognito, maybe wearing an Arrow of the Gods mask could show up.
Who is that man with the exact same cargo shorts and t-shirt as Robert Bevan?
I like to think the Arrow of the Gods will dress appropriate for the weather,
Oh, Bevan, can you not at least get yourself some kind of purple rogue cape? I might just steal something off, a man whore.
I mean, I could wear like a bear skin, except that I don't have one, and it's hot.
Go to IKEA and get a rug. That's what they did with Game of Thrones.
That's true. I have a sofa throw that I like to wrap around myself and sit in the dark and go, "Oh, winter is coming," and play Game of Thrones. Just, with an IKEA sofa throw. That's the budget they were working on. Bevan, the hotel's got to be air conditioned. Can you not even go to fucking IKEA? Jesus.
It's in the middle of the city. I've been there once since I lived here, and I don't want to go again.
No, don't go to IKEA. It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like a Lovecraftian nightmare.
Yeah, it's a labyrinth of despair where the Minotaur is mundanity. Well, you've got your weasel. You're bringing your weasel.
Yeah, I'm bringing Ron Weasley Jeremy.
Well, of course. Well, that'll do. Bevan and...
That's my costume.
Sorry, not Bevan. I mean Rick, because they're different people. Maybe the Arrow of Gods might make an appearance. We'll never know. You can't be sure of those things, because obviously Silas Kane and the Arrow of the Gods are different people. I do believe that Drew is bringing a wizard hat, which I appreciate.
I don't care about that. I want to see these sweat slacks he was telling us about.
Oh, yeah. Those mythical +1 sweat slacks. Yes. So basically, we need to get onto fucking John and Joe. Say, what you bringing, bitch? All these people can see my balls.
Joe's not too far off from Bjorg.
Well, yeah, he kind of is just like a naturally almost Bjorg anyway, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, you tell Joe, what are you bringing, bitch? And he might bring it.
He fucking broadsword. Yeah. I'll keep my mouth shut from now on. How about that, Joe? And John, I guess, is the closest of us all to an actual bard. So, used to work on the old behind-the-scenes theatrics.
Hopefully we'll get some Fandango karaoke.
Yes. Oh, man. We should pressure him into that. like bad friends.
We're not going to have a karaoke machine as part of our stuff, are we?
Well, not as part of our stuff, but it's Vegas. We'll find a karaoke machine. Is that because you want a karaoke machine? Is
Oh,
that what you
no.
want from this experience? Too late. We'll find a karaoke machine. There's plenty of us there. Actually, the fella I'm bringing with me as my personal minion, people might know him. He's a minor celebrity. He sings the chorus of our theme tune.
Ooh.
I used to be in a band with him. His name's Ash. So if you find him a karaoke machine, there you go.
I hope we're bringing. I hope there's an MP3 of our theme song, because we gotta play that over this overpriced sound system I think we're paying for.
Yeah, just on repeat for 8 hours.
I like it.
I guess we will see how it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. But anybody listening to this, you're either on your way or you're not. If you're on your way, can't wait to see you. If you're not, there's going to be all kinds of video content waiting for you when we get back. And please do like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe.
Smash it.
Yes.
Fucking smash it.
And hopefully you're checking out my progress on the A&D Facebook page, and hopefully there is not a video of me being swarmed by coyotes.
Yeah, I mean, and if there is, Rick won't be alive to be annoyed about it, so don't worry about it. You can watch that shit within people.
That'll go fucking viral.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely going to make you smash that subscribe.
As I go down, I'm like, fuck you, Nebraska.
Being eaten alive by wolves.
And
Like
corn.
and subscribe. The last words of any true YouTuber. Well, fellas, I guess let's treat this like we're about to meet up in Vegas. Good luck, Godspeed. I can't wait.
Same here.
Vaya con Dios. Is that what they say? Is that right?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
It sounded good,
probably in our case, via con Diablo. But whatever works.
Okay, thank you, listeners. Thank you, creatives. I hope you got something out of the early part of the podcast. Thank you, Vegas Con goers. We hope you're as psyched as we are. It's going to be nice. And until next time.
Wait, before we stop, when's this gonna air?
Probably the day before the con.
Oh shit, never mind. If you're within a day of Vegas, you can still get tickets.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like, if you want to go over there last minute, I mean, it'll be going out on the Wednesday, so you've got 2 days to get them tickets. Get out there.
Oh yeah, that's plenty of time.
Yeah,
Do it.
do it.
Definitely do it.
I'm not even going to say goodbye. Just going to say, do it.
Do it.
Do it.